Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And if you are new here, my name is Kenny, and we keep it real over here talking about life, relationships, and all the crazy things that comes with adulting. Today's topic, family trauma. It's deep, I know it's personal, and it's something that many of us carry without even realizing. So I'm going to be sharing my personal journey and the steps that helped me to get to a healthier place. So grab a drink, get comfy, and let's get into it. First, let's define family trauma. Family trauma is not just about your parents. Family trauma is also about the environment or the circumstances around your environment while growing up. So it might not necessarily be just your parents doing something. It might be the environment where you grew up as a child. For years, I carried a lot of weight from my childhood and I didn't realize it until it began to affect my relationships, affect my self-worth, affect the way I saw life and perceived life. And I knew that I needed to address it as soon as possible. I remember I was in a relationship about over 7 years ago now. And in that relationship, there were attitude and attributes I displayed. Now, I didn't first notice until when I saw the pattern continuously. I realized that I was battling with a lot of trust issues. I had issues believing that my partner was faithful, and it led to a lot of fights, it led to a lot of back and forth in the relationship. And there were also some issues that were a bit more personal that I can't share. The relationship ended, by the way. So at that point, I knew that I needed to begin to study myself better because I felt like I didn't understand myself, and I felt that it was part of the reason why my relationship didn't work. Many years down the line, a lot of growth has happened with the help of God as well, and some help around. A lot of growth and development have been made. However, I see that speaking with a lot of people, I see that they are suffering similar issues, but they are not even aware of it yet. And I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to share from my own personal experience, and particularly focusing more on how I was able to heal and how I was able to grow beyond the trauma. Like I do say, what is trauma? When I speak with people, I tell people that trauma is actually a memory. Trauma is a memory probably of an abuse, a memory of a statement, a memory of a scenario. So there was something you saw while growing up, memory of an environment, the kind of environment you grew up in, memory of limitations, the kind of dreams or the kind of things you felt you could have achieved, but because of limitations you were unable to, memories of hurts, memories. So trauma is simply a scar that has been inscribed on our, on our mind or on our subconscious. It has been inscribed as a memory that whenever it returns or subconsciously, it affects the way we live. So the way I see trauma as a knowledge, because a memory is a knowledge. So I see trauma as a knowledge that was built based on experiences and memories we had while growing up as children, and has now grown to become a perception, or has now grown to become a concept, or which some people now call mindset. So it has grown to become a mentality, a mindset, or of how we deal with life, which forms our perception of life. So that is the way I define trauma personally. And when we call something a knowledge a knowledge has to be learned. So a knowledge is not, you don't just take up a knowledge, you learn a knowledge. There are many ways we learn, knowledge. We can learn knowledge from verbal teaching, we can learn knowledge from virtual, we can learn knowledge from experiences. So, but most times we experience certain things that has taught us, and we have grown with that teaching to form a knowledge that forms our mindset, and it now affect or dictate our perception of life. That is trauma. I remember speaking with someone last year, and I said, if trauma is a knowledge that was learned based on experience, then it means like every knowledge, you can unlearn it. Yes. Someone say it's not that easy. It's not that easy. And I think that was where I started from. Because I think the biggest deception we've had over the years is that you have to live with your trauma. No, absolutely wrong. Because trauma is a knowledge that was learned based on experience. It's called experiential knowledge. That is why it is not universal. Because what you call trauma is unique to you. To another person, he cannot relate, but he has his own trauma, which you also cannot relate with. So we all learned it at individual levels, and it's now affecting our perception of life at individual level. So trauma is not generic. Trauma is not generic. Trauma is specific, and it is a specific knowledge because it's an experiential knowledge. And like every knowledge that was learned, you can unlearn to relearn to advance your learning. It's just so whenever I speak like this, people say, Ken Wonders, you don't understand what I'm talking about. And I used to ask this question: which would you prefer, to suffer forever or to live at peace with yourself forever? Because when you give yourself to trauma, you are self-stimulating your pain. You are living in the memory again and again, and continually you are living in the hurt because you chose to. How did I start healing? The first thing I did was to acknowledgement. I had to acknowledge that I needed to heal. So I didn't just pretend like everything was fine. And you know one thing is, like I said, trauma, family trauma is not, or childhood trauma does not really necessarily have to be from just your parents. It can be circumstances around your parents. They might not even hurt you directly. Trauma might be what happened between your father and your mother at your presence. That also can be traumatic. It could be that you grew up seeing your father beat your mother, despite the fact that your father never laid hands on you while growing up. That memory alone is traumatic. It could be that you saw your mother keep fighting your father, or lamenting, or you caught your father cheating, it could be anything. Aside abuses now, I know there are traumatic experiences that came from abuse and all that. Those ones we address, but trauma is broad. It can just be, so most times when we talk about trauma, parents have to understand, I'm addressing this to the parent. Parents have to understand that it's not just about the fact that you feel like you've been nice to your children. It's also about the fact that your children don't just see what you do to them. They also see what you do to their mother. They see what you do to their father. They see what you do to others. And that can build a perception or a perspective in their heart. So the first thing is you have to acknowledge that you need to heal. You need to unlearn. And what do we call healing? Healing is simply the process of unlearning to relearn a better knowledge. That's healing. I discovered also that there are actually some people that enjoy their trauma because of self-pity. One of the greatest forms of trauma is self-pity, because it has left the stage of external factor. It is now internal. When you become so trauma addicted that you now begin to see it as a way to generate self-pity over time, that is one of the most dangerous places to be. So some people enjoy sharing their traumatic experience so that people will gather to show pity. But you cannot continue to live like that. So you have to first acknowledge that you have a problem that needs to be fixed. The second step is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not just about saying I forgive my parent and I forgive the situation around my family while growing up. No, that's not just forgiveness. Forgiveness is also in understanding why your parent did what they did. And I think this was the biggest deliverance for me. I got to that stage of my life when I realized that all my life I've always been focusing on myself. They didn't do this. They did that. They didn't do this. My parent they didn't do this well. They didn't do that one well. That was all I was focusing on. But I got to a point in my journey when I said, okay, one day I'm going to be a parent. And I think one of the best gifts I want my child to give to me is that they understand me. There's no money a child can give a father or a mother that will really move them as much as the love that a child has for his father or his mother that is bettered from a place of understanding. So I knew that I needed to take my time, take everything away from myself. It's not just all about me, and focus on them. That was one of the biggest deliverance that happened on this healing journey. I discovered that most of the things these parents did were born out of love. Of course, I can't deny that there were things that were done ignorantly. On a larger percentage, most parents genuinely love their children. Of course, sometimes they act selfish. That's the nature of a human being. Sometimes they might have acted out of selfishness. Sometimes they might have done things irrationally. But it doesn't cancel their love. And when you start focusing on the fact that these people also are humans, and these people thought they were doing what was best for you, you will be more merciful and compassionate with your parents, because they are humans like you. They are only privileged to have given birth to you, but they are first humans like you. So this was the thing that came to me, and I realized that forgiveness is not just by saying I forgive, because if you just say you forgive, hey, and you still don't understand, you will keep going back to that pain, that memory. But the moment you understand why they did what they did, you won't have to keep going back to the memory, because by your understanding, you would have cancelled every hurt that came with that memory. Another method of healing is therapy and self-reflection. This was one of the things that also helped me. After forgiveness, I discovered that beyond my parents, there were attachment of experiences here and there that had built up to have affected me while growing as a child. It was not just my parents. It was secondary school. There were statements said by teachers, environment. There were statements said by people passing by, people who are just extended family. There were experiences I have seen. There were many attachments, and that is one of the benefits of having a therapist. Going for therapy is not sickness. Going for therapy is not for the weak. Everybody needs therapy. Everybody. Another way is self-reflection. I spent time meditating and reliving my childhood. And I didn't just relive my childhood in my head to go back to memories that hurt. Rather, I relived my childhood in my head to give myself things that I didn't have when I was growing up as a child, because I own my memory. So I can insert into my memory what I want my memory to have. I can insert into my mind the things I want there. So I began to change the narrative in my head. This might sound crazy, but it works. It works for me. So when I relive my childhood, I don't relive the bad moment. I relive the good ones. I choose to be picky about my memories. And finally, building healthier relationship. I think this one is also one of the biggest way at which I experience great healing. You have to build very, very good relationship with people. If you associate yourself with more toxic people, they will trigger unnecessary memories and emotions. But having around you people who have positive vibe will hasten your healing process. So it's very important you are picky and stay away from toxic people. Healing is not a one-time event. It's a journey. Some days you feel free, other days you feel triggered. But the most important thing is that you keep going. If you are dealing with a family trauma, please know that you are not alone. You deserve peace, you deserve joy, and you deserve to be loved in a way that doesn't feel like a battle. So that's it, guys. Drop a comment if you have ever struggled with this, or if you are presently on your healing journey. I would love to hear from you. And also don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep growing together. And until next time, bye.